Have you ever stopped to think about how often your inner voice is your own worst critic? It's like there's a little gremlin living inside your head, constantly pointing out your flaws, second-guessing your decisions, and generally making you feel like you're not good enough. But what if I told you that it doesn't have to be this way? What if I told you that you have the power to change those negative thought patterns and create lasting change in your life? It might sound like magic, or some sort of self-help mumbo-jumbo, but it's actually based on a very real and fascinating aspect of the human brain called neuroplasticity. Now let me tell you a story. There once was a woman named Sarah who from the outside seemed to have it all. She had a successful career, a loving family, and a beautiful home. But inside, she was constantly battling feelings of inadequacy. No matter how many accomplishments she racked up, that inner critic was always there, whispering in her ear that she was a fraud, that she didn't deserve her success, and that it was only a matter of time before everyone found out. Sarah's story is more common than you might think. Many of us walk around with a similar gremlin in our heads, a constant stream of negative self-talk that holds us back from reaching our full potential. This gremlin is often born in our early years, during our childhood. Think of your young mind as a sponge soaking up everything around you. You learn by observing the world, the people in it, and their interactions. This is what we call observational knowledge. You see, your parents, your teachers, your friends, they all played a part in shaping your initial understanding of the world. Their words, their actions, their beliefs, whether intentionally or not, became a part of your internal blueprint. Now, this observational knowledge can be a powerful force for good. You learn valuable skills, social norms, and moral values that help you navigate the complexities of life. But what happens when the observations you make are negative? What if you grow up in an environment where you're constantly criticized, belittled, or made to feel like you're not good enough? Let's say, for example, that a young boy named Tom grows up in a household where his father is highly critical. Every time Tom makes a mistake, no matter how small, his father berates him, calling him clumsy or stupid. Over time, Tom starts to internalize these messages. He begins to believe that he truly is clumsy and stupid, and this belief becomes a core part of his self-identity. Or consider a girl named Emily, who is constantly compared to her seemingly perfect older sister. Her parents, perhaps with good intentions, often say things like, "Why can't you be more like your sister? She always gets good grades." Or, "Your sister is so talented at music, why don't you try harder?" Emily starts to believe that she will never measure up, that she is inherently less capable than her sister. These early experiences can create what we can call a perception box. This box is essentially a set of beliefs and assumptions about yourself and the world that you develop based on your observations and experiences. It's like a lens through which you view everything, and it heavily influences your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. In other words, everything that you believe about yourself and about the world is inside this imaginary box. If your early experiences were mostly positive, your perception box might be filled with beliefs like, "I am capable," "I am worthy of love and respect," and "the world is a safe and supportive place." But if your experiences were predominantly negative, your box might contain beliefs like, "I am not good enough," "I am unlovable," and "the world is a dangerous and hostile place." The problem is that this perception box, especially when filled with negative beliefs, can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your brain, in its quest for efficiency, starts to develop cognitive biases, which are basically mental shortcuts that can lead to errors in judgment and decision-making. One of the most powerful cognitive biases is the negativity bias. This is our brain's natural tendency to pay more attention to negative information than positive information. It's like our brains are hardwired to look for threats and dangers, which, from an evolutionary standpoint, was crucial for survival. But in our modern world, this bias can lead us to dwell on negative experiences, ruminate on our mistakes, and generally see the world through a pessimistic lens. Think about it. If you receive 10 compliments and 1 criticism, which one do you tend to remember the most? Chances are it's the criticism. That's the negativity bias in action. Another bias that plays a significant role in perpetuating negative thought patterns is the confirmation bias. This is our tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring or downplaying information that contradicts them. So if you believe that you're not good enough, you're more likely to notice and remember instances that seem to confirm this belief, while dismissing or forgetting instances that contradict it. For example, if you make a mistake at work, you might see it as further proof that you're incompetent, even if you have a long history of successes. These biases work together to keep you trapped in a cycle of negative thinking. Your perception box filled with negative beliefs leads you to interpret the world in a negative way due to the negativity bias. Then, the confirmation bias reinforces those negative interpretations, making your negative beliefs even stronger. It's a vicious cycle that can be incredibly difficult to break. But here's the good news. Your brain is not set in stone. It's not a fixed entity that's doomed to repeat the same patterns forever. In fact, it's incredibly adaptable, constantly changing and rewiring itself throughout your life. This is the concept of neuroplasticity, and it's the key to reclaiming your brain and creating lasting change. Neuroplasticity, in simple terms, is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. This means that you can actually change the structure and function of your brain through your experiences, thoughts, and actions. Think of your brain as a vast network of roads and pathways. Every time you have a thought, feeling, or experience, it's like a car driving down a particular road. The more you repeat that thought, feeling, or experience, the more well-traveled that road becomes. It starts as a dirt path, then maybe gets paved and eventually turns into a superhighway. Negative thought patterns are like those well-worn superhighways in your brain. They're the default routes that your thoughts tend to take, simply because they've been traveled so many times before. But with neuroplasticity, you can build new roads. You can create new neural pathways that lead to more positive and empowering thoughts and beliefs. It takes effort and it takes time, just like building a real road, but it is absolutely possible. So, how do you do it? How do you start building those new roads and break free from the tyranny of negative thought patterns? It starts with awareness. You need to become aware of your thoughts, especially the negative ones. This is where metacognition comes in. Metacognition is essentially thinking about thinking. It's the ability to observe your own thoughts and mental processes without getting swept away by them. It's like stepping outside of yourself and watching your thoughts go by like clouds in the sky. One powerful technique for developing metacognition is simply naming your thoughts. When you notice a negative thought pop into your head, instead of letting it take over, simply acknowledge it and give it a name. For example, if you find yourself thinking, "I'm going to fail this presentation," you can say to yourself, "That's the I'm a failure" thought. Or if you're thinking, "Nobody likes me," you can label it as the nobody likes me thought. This might seem like a small thing, but it's actually quite powerful. By naming your thoughts, you create a bit of distance between yourself and the thought. You're no longer identifying with the thought, you're simply observing it. This distance allows you to see the thought for what it is. Just a thought, not a fact. Now you might be thinking, "Okay, I can name my thoughts, but how does that actually change anything?" Well, research in neuroscience has shown that the very act of naming your emotions can reduce their intensity. It's like taking the wind out of their sails. When you experience a negative emotion, like fear or anxiety, it activates a part of your brain called the amygdala, which is the brain's emotional center. But when you name that emotion, it activates another part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is involved in higher-level thinking, reasoning, and emotional regulation. By engaging the prefrontal cortex, you're essentially putting the brakes on the amygdala's emotional response. You're shifting from a purely emotional state to a more rational and reflective one, but it doesn't stop there. Once you've become aware of your negative thoughts and started to name them, you can begin to challenge them. You can start to question whether they're actually true or just products of your biased perception box. Let's go back to our example of the thought, "I'm going to fail this presentation." Instead of accepting this thought as a fact, you can start to ask yourself some questions. Is this thought really true? What evidence do I have to support it? Have I successfully given presentations in the past? What are some other possible outcomes besides failure? What's the worst that could happen if I don't do perfectly? Will it really be the end of the world? By engaging in this kind of critical thinking, you start to chip away at the power of those negative thoughts. You start to see that they're not based on reality, but on your own insecurities and fears. Another powerful technique for reprogramming your brain is to focus on identifying and celebrating small wins. Remember, your brain is wired to pay attention to the negative, so you need to make a conscious effort to shift your focus to the positive. A small win could be anything that you consider a positive accomplishment, no matter how seemingly insignificant. Maybe you got out of bed on time, made a healthy breakfast, or completed a small task at work. It could even be as simple as remembering to drink a glass of water or taking a few deep breaths. The key is to acknowledge and appreciate these small wins. Take a moment to savor the feeling of accomplishment, no matter how small it may be. You can even keep a small wins journal, where you write down your daily victories. By consistently focusing on your small wins, you're essentially retraining your brain to pay more attention to the positive. You're building those new neural pathways that lead to more positive thoughts and feelings. Think of it like training a muscle. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym once and suddenly have a six-pack, right? It takes consistent effort over time. Similarly, changing your thought patterns takes consistent effort over time. It's important to be patient with yourself. You're not going to change overnight. There will be days when you slip back into old patterns of negative thinking. That's okay. It's part of the process. The key is to keep practicing, keep noticing your thoughts, keep naming them, keep challenging them, and keep focusing on your small wins. Slowly but surely, you'll start to see a shift. Those negative thoughts will start to lose their power, and you'll start to develop a more positive and resilient mindset. And as you continue on this journey, remember that you are not alone. Everyone struggles with negative thoughts and self-doubt at some point in their lives. It's part of being human. But the fact that you're here, listening to this, means that you're already taking steps in the right direction. You're showing a willingness to learn, to grow, and to take control of your own mental well-being. The journey of reclaiming your brain is not always easy, but it is absolutely worth it. When you break free from the shackles of negative thinking, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities. You start to see yourself as capable, worthy, and deserving of happiness and success. So, keep going. Keep challenging those negative thoughts, keep building those new neural pathways, and keep celebrating your small wins. You have the power to change your brain, to change your mindset, and to change your life. And remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and you've already taken that first step simply by being here and engaging with these ideas. So keep moving forward one step at a time, and know that you are capable of creating lasting change in your life. The power to reclaim your brain is within you, waiting to be unlocked. And when you do unlock it, you'll discover a sense of freedom, empowerment, and joy that you never thought possible. The gremlin may always be a part of you, but it doesn't have to control you. You can learn to coexist with it, to understand it, and ultimately to overcome its influence. And in doing so, you'll not only reclaim your brain, but you'll also reclaim your life.